All right, we are currently in the middle of the biggest Collegiate Rocket League event so far this summer, a $2,000 event hosted by Colleague with the National Guard with KC Pioneers to show off rosters for the upcoming fall and to give players that played this past spring and have graduated or moved on one last chance to play with their former rosters. But so far, Colleague PreJump 3 has been, I think, everything that we expected it to be. A great showcase of new rosters and maybe some upsets here and there. One final send-off to some previous legends of the CRL scene. So I figure it's a good idea to go back and recap day 1 in preparation for day 2, which is single elim, 16 teams, 4 invited squads, and then 12 teams that qualified last night for day 2 of PreJump 3. So here's pool 1 right behind me. We'll showcase it right here because there was some craziness happening last night in pool 1. Wichita State, with their new addition of Knight, playing alongside Mason and Kappa, they upset St. Clair Green. And yes, St. Clair Green is on EU ping for this. It's a full European roster, but that's still a big win for Wichita State, and I said it on broadcast last night with Vaudeville. This is a win that Mason and Kappa really haven't gotten to experience so far in their collegiate careers, and so I'm so excited that the addition of Knight into Wichita State's lineup is already paying dividends, and they're getting wins like this against the reigning champions of CRL Spring. So that happened in Game 5. It was a fairly close series, but 4-3 Game 5 is one I wish I could have watched, and it propelled Wichita State into Day 2, and St. Clair into the lower bracket. And there were fewer crazy results down here in the bottom portion of uppers here in Pool 1. Ole Miss qualified through the upper bracket. S5 Cosmic is their new third. It's going to be S5 Cosmic, Stealth, and Lunar in the starting lineup, but C-Money was playing last night in place of Stealth. And so, Ole Miss qualify, Burton Parker and St. Clair, I think to no one's surprise, get through the lower bracket, but I think it's surprising the fashion that they did it in, both in Game 5s. And for St. Mary's, I mean, credit to them. This is impressive, having a 2-1 series lead at a point in that series against St. Clair. And I don't know who this St. Mary's roster is, but hey, if this continues, we could have a new pop-up roster for the fall with St. Mary's doing well in the CRL scene. But I think Leslie is in a similar boat here, taking Bruton Parker Christian University to Game 5 here. And there was no Cass last night. It was the classic BPC lineup of Milkmanny Antics. But still, they win in Game 5, and Leslie impress. Swaz is a big recruit. Swaz and Colat, I was informed last night, are HSEL national champions, and Swaz has, I believe, made an NA main event, if not come extremely close. So this is a roster to look out for. Leslie has a resume to build some hype, I think, for the fall semester. And while they didn't qualify for Day 2 here of PreJump, just an unfortunate draw, I think they still did look impressive, beating RIT, beating MSU White, maybe in closer fashion than a roster that would garner a lot of excitement for the fall should be beating them in, but hey, it still wins. They're best of 3s, anything can happen there, and they take BPC to Game 5, which is a solid result. But still, when it comes to teams that get out of Pool 1, I don't think the 4 that did are too shocking. Maybe you just flip St. Clair Green and Wichita State, and that's where the shocking factor comes from. Then moving over to Pool 2, where things got weird. Not outside of the top side of the bracket. Concord going 3-0 isn't surprising at all. But King University, Game 5 against ECU. That's a little surprising. One last dance for basically over there at East Carolina. Same case for Big Wade with King, and getting a win over Oklahoma Christian in Game 5 is huge for the Tornado. And it looks like a weird series. I mean, 4-0 to start it off. Then 6-1, 3-2, okay, a bit more normal. Then 6-5, 4-2 in favor of King. I don't know what was going on in the Oklahoma Christian camp last night, but I know G-Man, when they did play on stream later on in the broadcast, he was kind of messing around a little bit against St. Clair Gold in the lower bracket. So I wonder if Oklahoma Christian just wasn't locked in for this one, but still, big win for King, and in 5 as well to get themselves a couple of chances to qualify for Day 2, which they run into a wall of Lubbock Christian, which, fair enough, LCU's playing with a new roster as well. We get to see tonight as Beasties joining the lineup with Schmackton Process. So, interested to see how LCU looks there, as that was one of those teams that could never really break out of the kind of 15 to 20 range when it came to the CRL rankings last year. But hey, good day for them. They go undefeated, 9-0 in games, and have a lot of momentum coming into tonight. But Oklahoma Christian drop down, make a run, and then lose to St. Clair Gold, who did play extremely well. I think they were consistent throughout the series. The Saints were here, and the Gold roster was True Christian and Fatal Leaf playing in that series last night, and they were connecting well as a team. They were shooting well as a team, and Oklahoma Christian just gave them one too many gaps throughout that best of 5. So no OCE in Day 2 of PreJump. It's probably the most shocking team not to make it to Day 2. And then, poor King, Game 5's all night long, and they dropped the most important Game 5 that they played to Wichita State JV. And this is such a King result to almost reverse sweep and then lose in Game 5 by a single goal, which does end Big Wade's Collegiate Rocket League career. So farewell, Wade. You are a phenomenal personality, fun player to watch as well. I never knew what I was going to get out of King matches that you were playing in, and I think that PreJump run here is a great example of that. You never knew what King was going to do last night in the bracket, but shout out to Wichita State, one of 2 schools to have 2 teams in Day 2 of PreJump 3. St. Clair's the other one, but Wichita State, definitely a name that'll be jumping up some rankings this upcoming fall semester, especially with the A team adding Knights, and then the JV team, I mean, looking good already. I knew they were a deep program, but Pickle and Viewsies, I'd watched a good bit before. Aqua Exa, though, I haven't seen too much of, but hey, if they're qualifying for Day 2, then pretty decent roster, so we'll get to see them tonight. And in Pool 3, the only pool that actually decided to behave last night. There weren't a ton of shocking results. I think the most exciting stories coming out of this pool is no WOVA for the tournament. Variety is in place for Ball State, but that didn't cause any problems here. And a 3 over Indiana Tech I think is impressive, which this is an Indiana Tech that is completely revamped, as Bluey no longer has Chippy, no longer has Miller, at least for this tournament, but has a couple of players that have made runs in EU and SSA, RLCS, Velocity and Reshurum, which I still need to get an official pronunciation on, but this is an exciting Indiana Tech team to watch. I don't think they were fully popping off or anything last night, as they couldn't get a game off of Ball State last night, and they were close affairs, but still, Indiana Tech, if they do want to take that next step, they're going to have to start playing close series against teams like Ball State, especially with a substitute in for the event. But Ball State go 9-0. They qualified to Day 2. And then on the bottom side of uppers, Akron's taken to 5 by a new San Diego State lineup, which I don't know if this is the starting 3 just yet. No Aquino here, but 5 stars, AZAP, and Sean B is the new addition to SDSU. And they looked okay. Had a couple of shots at maybe qualifying with the Game 5 series against Akron Glue, which, if you're wondering what glue means, just blue and gold combined, because Melio was playing with Patty and Bullseye. But that's a pretty good result for SDSU to go to 5 with Akron, as Akron looked pretty commanding against Shawnee State. Outside of a couple of Royales pop-offs, that series was largely controlled by Akron. And Shawnee State had a couple of peak moments where they would just outplay the Akron defense, but for the most part, Akron's goals came with just good challenging, good shots, and they were picking apart Shawnee State's defense like it was nothing at points. So definitely something to keep an eye on for this new Shawnee State lineup that seemed to be working out some of the kinks with the addition of Royales in place of Duckworth. But still, it's a summer tournament, so that's what this event is for. But on the bottom side, they 3-0 sweep Carthage Red, and that's what I expect out of Shawnee State. So good on them for beating the teams that they should beat and looking decent against Akron and Glue, but they will have to step it up tonight if they're going to make a run on Day 2 of PreJump. But Indiana Tech 3-0 SDSU, who just eked out a win over James Madison, who are going through a change of their own, integrating a new freshman into the lineup for PreJump. Fright is a 2K player, looked okay with Tyler and Gad. There were a lot of double commits, a lot of awkward moments that I think were indicative of a roster that's trying to bring in a new young player into a lineup that's kind of been cemented in the spring. They knew how they wanted to play with Pigeon in the starting lineup, and now they have to completely change things, and that'll lead to some growing pains if that's the starting lineup for the fall, as we're not sure if Pigeon will be returning to James Madison or not. That decision will come later. But James Madison looked okay at times. That 3-0 win over Central Michigan in the upper bracket was a good showing for them, but once the competition level upgraded, they started to struggle just a little bit. So, team to keep an eye on for sure as the summer continues. But Indiana Tech dismiss SDSU in their bid at making day 2. No big deal, and we'll get to see them tonight. And speaking of tonight, here's the bracket for you for the 16-team double elimination stage of PreJump 3 here. And I think it's a pretty interesting bracket, pretty well dispersed after all of the chaos of day 1 and the 4 invited teams not being the 4 strongest teams, I think, to come out of PreJump, but it was reseeded after the first day here. So Concord and West Virginia, top 2 seeds here. Ball State having that 3rd seed as well. And I think there are some pretty intriguing matchups here. And to talk about that in my typical fashion, I'm going to try predicting the bracket here. And I'll play this video throughout tonight on my broadcast, which you can see here. I will be streaming as an official side stream of PreJump, starting off with Ole Miss and LCU, and then probably Akron versus whoever gets out of the slugfest of Michigan State and Shawnee State there. Great Lakes Classic, but we'll see how my predictions hold up. But switching here, this is what I'm using, classic printyourbrackets.com bracket here, because Start GG doesn't have a predictions feature yet. Hopefully they add that one day. But I love this website. I used to be obsessed with it when I was younger, which probably contributed to my line of work here in esports. But let's try and predict it. Nice fillable bracket, and I mean, let's start with an easy one. Concord will beat Wichita State JV. It'll be a 3-0. Those guys are definitely locked in for PreJump. Well, I say definitely. I think it's a relative term, locked in. I think they will beat the teams that they have to beat, and probably make it to the finals. Watching this this bracket here, they got a new coach, DJ TJ, starting with the boys over there. It's his debut with the roster. Crispy's playing on EU ping, which could impact them, but it didn't on day 1, maybe outside of that 1-game loss to Kaiser. But if I know those guys, they probably were messing around a little bit in that series, and maybe a couple of the series on day 1, but they'll lock in when it matters, and I fully expect them to defend their crown here since they won PreJump this past season. But this is a very intriguing matchup here, Wichita State and Syracuse, which I want to say Syracuse will do well, because this is a roster that should be showcased a good bit on day 2 of PreJump here, but I don't think they'll have it together quite yet, whereas Wichita State last night showcased that they do have it together. Beating St. Clair Green, ping or not, is a huge win for Wichita State, and if Knight's integrating well with Mason and Kappa already, then they're prepared to make a run here, at least to Concord. I don't think they'll beat Concord, but I think they'll get through Syracuse, and that is the first streamed match of Colleague as well, so going to be a good one there. Definitely watch Colleague TV on Twitch, but I'm going to give the nod to Concord. Just go ahead and predict this, get it out of the way. Sorry, Wichita. Good run so far, but Concord are the reigning champs, and these guys like winning tournaments. I fully expect them to make a deep run here. But Akron's another team that I think can contest Concord, another squad that will lock in for events like these, because not all rosters take these sorts of side events seriously. But I think Akron will. I think Concord will as well. And I know Shawnee State and Michigan State both have something to prove in an event like this. And this series right here, I struggle to predict. I want to stream it, but I can only pick one of the round of 16 matchups, as this is a Great Lakes Classic. right here. Michigan State's playing with Drewy in place of Morvu in this lineup. So we knock Off-Bomb and Drewy, which isn't the set starting lineup. Off-Bomb was telling me that nothing is set until tryouts conclude in August. So just a trial run for this trio here. And Shawnee State is a great test in round 1. And Shawnee State against Akron didn't look the most stable as a lineup. I think their defense struggled a bit, and Michigan State's a squad that in transition with Op-Bomb at the helm of the Spartans' counterattack, they will find the same openings against Shawnee State that Akron was finding last night in their series. So I think if we see the same Shawnee State that we got last night, then Michigan State will win this series. But I believe in Shawnee State here. I think they'll fix what went wrong against Akron, which is a great case study for the Bears there. I think they win a heater. It's a best of 7. I think it goes 7, and I'll give the nod to Shawnee State, which I feel bad because I've already knocked out 2 of the invite teams that got invites straight into pre-jump here. And on the other side of the bracket, we've got the other 2, but I think West Virginia will change that narrative. I think they will beat Indiana Tech. Lock in on typing Virginia there. But I think they'll beat Indiana Tech, who showed last night that they're not ready to play teams in the top 8 of CRL, which West Virginia, you could make an argument for top 8 very easily with Gyro in the lineup, which is who they're running with tonight. It'll be Angel, Daunt, and Gyro. That's their trio for pre-jump, and I would have to imagine the foreseeable future, but I don't have any confirmations there. They will beat Indiana Tech, though. I can almost guarantee that. Ole Miss and LCU, this is the one I'm streaming on my channel, so let's see if I get it right. I liked what I saw from Ole Miss last night. They've brought in S5 Cosmic, and it seems to have reinvigorated that roster. They looked so solid. C-Money, despite graduating and being a graduate assistant this upcoming semester instead of a player, I would have maybe expected that to hinder his form, but he was on point. And LCU, I didn't get to watch them. They went 9-0. It was a perfect run through the upper bracket for Lubbock Christian. So I don't know. I'm kind of deciding this on the fly. I'll back Ole Miss because I like it when Ole Miss is doing well. It's that Southeast bias. They're in the SEC. I like it when SEC teams do well. LCU also in the Southeast, but I have a little less bias towards them. So Ole Miss get the win, but this is a toss-up. That's why I chose it to be on my stream tonight. I won't be on the call for that one. I'll be hosting as Sleeper and Skyline will be casting that one. But I'm excited just to get to sit back and watch it, be in the lobby for Ole Miss and LCU. But Ball State, Bruton Parker, BPC, going to 5 against Leslie is a bit concerning, as in the past, this Bruton Parker lineup would have, I think, quashed a team like Leslie trying to prove themselves as a young, fiery squad. But I think they'll put up a fight against Ball State. Typically, though, BSU have had Bruton Parker's number, even in the past when all 3 members of Bruton Parker were on a deeper grind than I think they are right now. So I'm going to say Ball State wins it. I'm looking to play the winner of George Mason and St. Clair Green. George Mason is apparently, I've been told, not playing with Kinset or Memory. So it's going to be Devin, Proto, and Krazix playing with each other. And I don't think they're going to beat St. Clair with that lineup, unfortunately, which is another invite team that goes down in round 1 in my eyes. But I think Ball State still make a run, which, sorry, BK, I made a promise to him that I would not predict Ball State, any of my predictions, because typically when I'm not favoring them in a series, that's when BSU tend to find their wins. But I think they make a run to top 4 tonight, and I think they play West Virginia, which this is shaping up to be a really boring predictions video because I'm just taking the top 4 seeds so far, but that's the way it goes. The top 4 seeds in CRL tend to win no matter what the event is, no matter what kind of chaos a tournament like pre-jump could levy on the field. But Concord, Akron, West Virginia, and Ball State are my top 4, and I'm just going to stick with being boring, I suppose. We got all the chaos out of our system this on day 1, and day 2 I don't foresee a lot of chaos in the field as Concord and West Virginia will play each other, and this one is going to be a great finale. A couple of top CRL squads playing with, I think, their strongest versions of themselves. Crispy's on EU ping, which could affect Concord, and so I think West Virginia take it. I think they show off Gyro in their lineup to a great degree of success, take home 1,000 buckaroos of this $2,000 pre-jump prize pool. And in the past as well, PreJump has determined the winner of CRL Fall, as Northwood won it 2 years ago, ended up winning CRL in the fall of 23. Concord won it last year. They won CRL Fall of 24. So I guess West Virginia is winning CRL 2025. Congrats, boys. And we'll see how these predictions hold up, because they are a little boring, but that's the way that CRL is right now. The top of the scene is the very top of the scene, and they don't typically let teams jump into that echelon of play. They're your teams like your Bruton Parkers, your Shawnee States, Michigan States, and now Wichita, Syracuse, Indiana Tech, Ole Miss now as well. I mean, this is the most competitive the top 16 has ever been. But I think the teams at the top will stay at the top for the most part. So congrats, West Virginia. You're the team I back to win it all here. PreJump number 3, which is hosted by Colleague. Colleague TV tonight for the main stream. Twitch.tv/Mr. Bepic for the B stream. Somber and Rocket Star streaming as well. So if you like Collegiate Rocket League, tonight's your night, because I can't guarantee we'll get much more until things pick back up in September, though. I've heard Summer Series could be back, and put as much stock in that as you wish, because we've been told a lot in the past that hasn't followed through, so we'll see what happens there. Enjoy PreJump, though, while you got it.